It's Dr. John Egan here, again with another Leadership Chats. I have with me today Dr. John Banter, as well as Bill Hubbard. In September 1998, Bill joined the Savannah Area Chamber of Commerce and Convention and Visitors Bureau as the president and CEO. Since then, the chamber has grown from 1,600 members to 2,200 members and owns the Visit Savannah and a variety of councils in the areas of leadership, sports, small business, military, manufacturing, legislative, and others. Bill, thank you so much for joining us here today. We're really glad to have you.
I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
So, Bill, would you start by sharing with us about your professional background and the work you do for the Savannah Area Chamber?
Sure. Growing up, I spent a lot of time living in a variety of different areas, went to a variety of different schools. Education was critically important, I think, in terms of what I felt was a foundation for kind of long-term achievement. I eventually finished a real estate project in the Detroit area. I'm from Michigan originally. And one of my partners said, hey, go talk to the chamber guy. He can tell you what the jobs are that are available in the town and give you an idea what's happening. And that gentleman offered me one of two jobs, an economic development marketing job or a different job in communications. I took the economic development marketing job in about 82 or 83. 8 years with the Metro Detroit Chamber of Commerce, which was fascinating because that was really the globalization of the auto industry at that point in time. From there, kind of wanting a change for no particular reason other than, it was routine, and ended up in Atlanta running economic development for the Metro Atlanta Chamber. That was also a fascinating time because it was very, very, very early on in the Olympic marketing effort. And so I spent a lot of time in and around the Olympic activity and tying that to economic development. Our job was to try to relocate and bring new companies and new jobs from other parts of the country. Somewhat similar situation. I was going to go to Salt Lake City to run that chamber after about 12 years in Atlanta. And somebody said, hey, they need somebody like you in Savannah. And one of the first things I learned was you don't have a decision to make until somebody offers you a job. So why not go listen to them? And even if you don't end up with the job or wanting the job, you still help them by giving them one more candidate to compare against. And so I ended up in Savannah, what now has been a long time ago, 99, and got a long career here, but, kind of 35 years of doing this stuff. And at the chamber role, it's a little bit different. We do own the Convention and Visitors Bureau called Visit Savannah. So instead of being the lead economic development marketing organization to bring new companies, now we're bringing visitors. And then we also do the typical things chambers do, and I can talk about that as we go on.
Awesome. Thank you. With the challenges that businesses face in the world today, how can leadership help to address these issues?
Well, I think, leadership's got a lot of different shapes and forms, and depending upon a circumstance, and maybe it's whether you're sitting in a room or sitting in an office, at some point in time, you're the leader, at some point in time, you're the follower. So I think it's really about learning skills that help you become effective. And the more effective you are, and the more you find skills that either work for you or certainly are proven through history and education, that skill set then allows you to effectively motivate people, effectively assess situations, choose more effectively the right alternatives, reduce the risk of either being wrong or making difficult mistakes. And so I think there's a whole series of techniques there that you learn over time that then molds you into a leader and puts you in a position of leadership. And I think one of the important things is leaders don't have to lead all the time. There are a lot of opportunities to sit back, listen, pay attention, and maybe there's a time to lead, and sometimes there's maybe not a time to lead. The worst thing in the world is somebody that thinks they're the smartest person in the room.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So local business owners are sometimes often also the pillars of local leadership. And so in your opinion, what is needed from local leaders in times of crisis like we find ourselves today?
Well, I think things have changed so much over time. We're in a circumstance now where we more or less have perfect communication. Communication is so fast with all of our new electronic platforms. The internet laid the groundwork for that, but then it's been all the apps. So information is perfect. You can't afford to guess anymore and maybe be right, maybe not, because somebody will bring up the magic board right next to you and get the right answer. So I think the importance of such fast communication has even made the importance more significant about being accurate. I think there's no secrets any longer. People could do things in terms of making business decisions or making social decisions, but today everything that you do has to be done from the perspective of public scrutiny, and I think that's very good and very healthy. I think the importance of confidentiality is critical too. We live in this wonderful, great, free society. We see it in front of us all the time. We all have the freedom to our opinion. That doesn't mean everybody needs to hear your opinion every time you have it. And I think you have to be very selective. I can't tell you how many times, every person I interview, we've got 80 people on staff. We're about a $13 million organization. Every person I interview, I could do background searches in social media. And I can't tell you how many times a younger person will have made an sometimes innocent, sometimes not innocent mistake that calls into question their judgment. So I think one of the things all leaders and everybody in a moment of crisis has to do is make sure that they have a pretty carefully selected background and that they've been careful over time, because you never know, something that you might have said or meant or sent to a friend jokingly, it's misunderstood. Talking to somebody and seeing them face to face and seeing the reaction in their eyes when they say something and their facial expression is dramatically different than how you read the printed word in an email. And I can't emphasize enough of how important it is to be extremely selective about how you communicate in all those platforms. And basically, in the old days, we used to kid about don't ever do anything you wouldn't want to read about on the cover of the newspaper. That's still really true. But every single tweet, every single text, is out there forever and has the ability to come back. So I think one of the things that, no matter what age you are, being extremely careful there, is of critical importance. So that's the background side. On the leadership side, I think the other skill that often is lost is the critical importance of listening. And I think leaders that, particularly in a time of crisis, can be particularly effective by engaging people around them, hearing what their opinions are, making sure that you have good factual information, and then making your decisions from there. And I think one of the things I learned in grad school in a policy class toward the end is the alternative of doing nothing is not always a bad alternative. You don't have to always feel like you have to make a decision and make a move and change a course of direction. Often some of the worst decisions are the ones that get made too hastily. So taking a few minutes, not doing something can be hugely effective. And I think that is an attribute of leaders that also works well.
I like that. So the idea of listening, take a moment to listen. Be careful on your social media. And then the last piece of you always don't have to take action. Those are three really good points. Next question is, during this current situation with COVID-19, where have you seen great leadership?
Well, certainly within the medical industry. I think the medical industry is driving it all. I think the mistakes that get made are, again, when somebody, kind of assumes they know it and they're not really listening to the experts. So I think the medical industry is absolutely key to it. I think some of the best elected leadership are those that are careful about, same thing we just talked about, garnering information from different places, not making decisions hastily. I think one of the real leadership attributes also is, if you think somebody's wrong or you don't agree with them, it doesn't mean that you have to deal with that publicly. Way too often you see a public debate that's just unnecessary. It's okay to smile and say, I appreciate your perspective. And when you get off the conference call, pick up the phone and call somebody, or, don't weigh into when the media calls you and says, gee, I want to know how you feel about opening up early, or opening up now. And you're going to get drawn into, okay, do you agree with the mayor? Do you agree with the governor? And there's just no need to be in that, because nobody likes to be embarrassed in a public environment. It's fine to talk to people about how you disagree, but do that in a private situation. Never do that in a public situation. So I think how you handle, again, all these communication platforms, as well as electronic live media, is the key to that. So I think our governmental leaders have done a great job of trying to garner information. They've listened to the medical folks. Sometimes the conclusions are slightly different. I personally, with our office, like to be somebody that can make our decision as to when we think it's right for us. And I appreciate having that opportunity. And then I think the other thing is to deal with things like social spacing, and protective gear and everything. Share some of the best examples. When you go into Publix, you can only go one way down an aisle. And when you check out, they've got tape on the floor to remind you what your 6 feet is. Those are all great best practices that could be utilized anywhere. So I think sharing best practices is a big piece of leadership, and I think we've seen a lot of that during this crisis also.
So how do you think that our students and citizens of Savannah, coastal Georgia, could provide leadership to help local businesses in the days to come?
Well, I think we've already seen a lot of that. I can't tell you how many times I've seen your students, and students elsewhere at America's Second Harvest Food Bank helping organize the food giveaways or helping pack the boxes. Right now, there's been a huge slowdown in blood collection. And so more and more, particularly the younger folks, are quick to get out there and donate blood. And then I think also talking to each other and not calling each other out, but reminding each other the issues of the social distancing and the other kinds of things. It's, I've been in the house for, most of the last month working from home and certainly getting out and doing things. But I had a guy here the other day to clean the gutters. And I was so happy to see somebody. I got within about 2.5 feet to shake his hand just because it was habit. And if somebody had been there to remind me, it wouldn't have happened that way. And so I think it's fine for us to remind each other, but it's all in that politeness factor of how do you do it. But, the students are tomorrow's leaders. You guys are shaping them today, and they're providing their guidance, their input, and they're doing their part, as part of that leadership.
Well, Bill, thank you very much for taking some time to share your thoughts on leadership with our students, and I hope to see you soon back in the real office, and that we can all be somewhat back to a normal, or at least the new normal.
You guys at Georgia Southern are doing a wonderful job. We appreciate it. It's fascinating with, the Armstrong merger that we're all one, and that's extremely healthy. You guys are 35, 40 minutes down the road. You can't get across Atlanta in that little bit of time. So it's not a big distance. And it's not a big challenge. We're all in it together, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you so much, Bill.
All right.
Take care.
Everybody, be safe.